Hi there, it's November 20th, and we are continuing our journey through the prophecies of Ezekiel, in Hebrew Ezekiel, meaning the Lord strengthens, and we've come to the balance of chapter 40 and the whole of chapter 41. In chapter 40, we left Ezekiel being led by the angelic man walking around the new temple in his vision. This is after the destruction of the old temple, and so we are being taken now by Ezekiel's vision into the inner court. Now, Ezekiel is a priest. He tells us that at the beginning of his prophecies in chapter 1. So he probably would have been familiar with the old temple and its setup. And so, of course, we know that in the temple there was an outer court, and here there's also an inner court. There's an outer court where people go, and then there's an inner court before the temple itself, where the temple stands. And so now, in chapter 40 and verse 26, we're being taken through the gate into the inner court. And there are three gates here. There's a southern gate that Ezekiel is being led through, the eastern gate and a northern gate. And these gates are very similar to the initial gates that Ezekiel came through into the outer court, but these gates actually are different in that they have stone tables. There are 4 stone tables outside and 4 stone tables inside the porch, and these tables that are about 2 feet high are therefore preparing and butchering the sacrifices which are going to be made. And they are square tables. Everything again is very ordered, as I say, 2 outside and 2 inside. And so Ezekiel goes through these gates and into the inner court. And there are various rooms. There's a room for the use of the priests inside the court. And it's interesting that the priests here are called the sons of Tzadok, the sons of Zadok, we might say. And Zadok was the priest who overlapped the end of David's reign and into the reign of Solomon. He actually, remember in that famous verse that Zadok the priest and Nathan the prophet anointed Solomon king. And so this is seen again linked to this Davidic figure who's coming, and so Zadok is the priests are called the sons of Zadok and sons of Zadok. And then Ezekiel is taken by the angelic being into the temple itself, in Hebrew called the Hechal. He's taken, he calls it the Beit as well, the house, and he's taken into the house through the great doors, through a deep threshold into the building itself. And he says at the far end of the temple building is the Holy of Holies. It's divided in 2, in the holy place and into the Holy of Holies. But then Ezekiel is also shown the side buildings, and around this tall temple building that's in the middle of the inner court, there are also arcaded chambers and sort of 3 stories of rooms, ancillary rooms, around the temple sides. And these rooms have the walls of them have windows that are covered, and then inside there are 3 landings, and the landings are connected most probably by a staircase, a spiral staircase, or even a ramp, some way of getting up to them. And these are obviously ancillary rooms. And then there are also other side buildings that are at a space from the temple itself, which presumably were used for rooms for the use of the priests, for storerooms and so on. And so it's interesting how ordered Ezekiel describes this, the order of what he describes. And then he describes the inside of the temple itself. When he goes into the temple, it is panelled with wood, and on the wood are carved palm trees, and cherubim, kruvim. And these kruvim are given the image of having the face of a man and the face of a lion. That it's not unlike Ezekiel's initial vision of seeing the living creatures, except here we're just seeing the cherubim, kruvim, with a lion's face and a man's face. And he goes forward and sees the altar before the Holy of Holies. Before he goes into the Holy of Holies, here is the actual wooden altar itself. And the wooden altar is a place where the incense would usually be burned. And this is all, as I say, very ordered. This is the table before the Lord. And then lastly, he describes the double doors, and there are double doors going into the Holy of Holies. And of course, the Holy of Holies was separated from the holy place, and the high priest would normally only go there once a year. But he's he's very descriptive of the fact that these are double doors, perhaps folding doors that go back on themselves. And thus we come to the end of chapter 41 with a description of these double doors. There is a beauty and an order about this place that Ezekiel is describing. As I say, he would have been very familiar with the old temple, with the temple that had been destroyed. So as he sees this vision, he must have been filled with hope of what is to come, filled with hope that God still has a plan for his people. He still has a plan that is full of beauty and order. And as he sees this in vision, it will have filled him with hope. We today are God's temple. Jesus is the temple of which we are a part as his body, and we are being built into that living temple, that temple not rooted to one place, but that temple moving throughout the world. And we today can be filled with hope that Jesus is building that temple, Jesus is still filling that temple, and his glory is being carried on each one of us. Have a very good November 20th.